Hey TikTok, this is the final part of my recap on the 1619 Project. In this section, the author explores how the United States acquired and sustained its wealth, emphasizing that the country would not be the richest in the world without the institution of slavery. Wealth is typically built across generations with stark disparities in how this process has unfolded for different racial groups. White families have had a significant head start, having built their wealth over centuries, while many black families may only trace their wealth back 2 generations, if they're fortunate. This creates a cycle where each generation of black families are often starting from scratch. For instance, consider the couple who shares that their parents provided the down payment for their home. Such advantages are not as commonly available to black families. Despite higher incomes, many black families still reside in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods. Currently, black families possess only 1 cent of wealth for every dollar held by white families. It's crucial to recognize that much of this wealth was originally amassed through the forced labor of enslaved Americans and the appropriation of indigenous peoples' lands. White enslavers were compensated for the slaves they lost during emancipation, while formerly enslaved individuals were often relegated to sharecropping. Historical laws dictated that children of enslaved women inherited their mother's status, meaning that even if a woman was assaulted by her enslaver, her children would be considered their property. This deeply disturbing reality speaks to a broader history of exploitation. The closest we came to reparations was during the Reconstruction era, which faltered following Lincoln's assassination. Callie House emerged as one of the first African Americans to advocate for reparations, facing arrest in 1897 for sending mail promising reparations, resulting in a year-long sentence. Throughout history, whenever we attempted to build wealth, status, or create our own resources, like schools, hospitals, and banks, these efforts were often dismantled. An example is Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, where white supremacists violently overthrew the elected government during a coup resulting in the murder of at least 60 African Americans. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood district, known as Black Wall Street, was celebrated as one of the most affluent African American communities. On May 30th, 1921, following the arrest of a black man, after an encounter with a white woman, a violent riot ensued on June 1st, leading to the looting and burning of Greenwood, claiming over 300 lives and destroying 35 city blocks. The statistics are alarming. Between 1882 and 1968, approximately 6,500 black individuals were lynched, averaging 3 every 2 weeks. In contemporary society, law enforcement continues to disproportionately impact African Americans, with an estimated 5 deaths per week attributed to the police violence. During the Jim Crow era, African Americans were often limited to low-paying service jobs, lacking union representation. Educational attainment for African Americans faced significant obstacles, with many unable to complete high school as late as 1940. From 1828 to 1880, only 30 African Americans graduated from any institution of higher learning. Up until the 1960s, around 80% of African Americans attended HBCUs. But with the introduction of affirmative action, enrollment in predominantly white colleges increased. The practice of redlining has compounded these challenges. It involves denying financial services to neighborhoods with large populations of racial and ethnic minorities, primarily affecting African Americans. This discriminatory practice artificially lowers home values in black communities while inflating them in predominantly white neighborhoods. Civil rights laws granted rights that should have always been inherent, yet they did not create a level playing field. For instance, while the Fair Housing Act aimed to address some disparities, it failed to reset real estate values, which remained depressed in black neighborhoods, while being inflated in white areas. The repercussions of redlining and systemic inequality continue to linger today. The author concludes by asserting that the only way to address historical injustices is for the government to acknowledge the wrong done to African Americans and provide reparations to the descendants of enslaved individuals. Survivors of the Holocaust and Japanese internment camps received forms of reparations, and rightly so. Why can't the government recognize the atrocities inflicted on enslaved people, which continue to impact our communities today? Thank you all for listening. If you haven't listened to parts 1 through 3, I encourage you to do so.